All right, so this is video number 2 on metric conversions. If you watched the previous video, you learned how, ratios are made and how we basically set up a problem. And we did it with a problem that may be a little bit easier to grasp, going from quarters to dollars. And now we're going to do a little bit more problems that maybe you haven't thought of before, like quarters to dollars. So here's an example problem right here. This example problem is based off of your lesson questions, your quizzes, and your tests. So these types of problems will be on them, and they're not easy to guess on, but you definitely can do them if you watch this video. So you'll need to take notes as you go. It helps so much if you just write down what I'm writing down and you're listening and it's making sense and kind of taking some notes. It's going to help you so much. So let's try this problem. And I have here some relationships that you need to know for your tests and for your quizzes. This is in your lesson, but I just kind of formatted it a little bit differently. It shows up as a sticky note in lesson 4, but you can take a screenshot of this if you want. It came from my metric conversion resource that's on my landing page, but you're going to need this unless you want to memorize all of those numbers there. So let's look at this question here. It says, Miss Beckham measured the air in her tire to be 2.14 atm. That's an atmosphere. I'm going to circle that. That seems important. What is the pressure in units of PA? So 2.14 atm, the atm is already that's a unit of pressure, if you're not aware, because I didn't know units of pressure whenever I was a teenager until I took chemistry. So that's a unit of pressure. The question is saying, what is that pressure in units of pascals or PA? So it wants us to convert it to units of pascals. So it's the same thing as going from quarters to dollars. We're going from atmospheres to pascals. So the first thing that we need to do is identify the relationship between atmospheres and pascals. So looking up here, we can see it. So I'm going to copy it down. It says that 1 atmosphere is equal to 100,000 pascals. You see that right here? So the 1 atmosphere equals 100,000 pascals. So that is our relationship. I can either write it in a fraction like this, 1 atmosphere for every 100,000 pascals, or I could write it like this, 100,000 pascals for every 1 atmosphere. That is kind of messy handwriting, but that should be a PA right there. So I could write it either way. So when I'm doing my conversion, this is kind of the second step. I'm going to write down what I started with. So what did I start with? I started with 2.14 atm, and I'm just going to put it over 1 because it helps us do the problem a little bit easier. So you write down what you start with, and then you put it over 1, and then we're going to multiply. And we're going to do another fraction line. And now I'm going to put the unit I want to get to on top. So what unit do I want to get to? I want to get to PA. So I put that on top. And I put the unit I want to cancel out on bottom. I want atmospheres to cancel out. You see how I'm going to put that on bottom because then they will cancel out. Atmospheres divided by atmospheres. Okay? And now I'm going to input the relationship. It looks like I should be using this one because do you see how the PA is on top and the ATM is on bottom, just like ours? So I'm going to use that second fraction because if I did this one, then the atmospheres will be on top, and that's not the way that mine is set up. So I'm going to put 100,000 on top and 1 on bottom. And now all we need to do is in our scientific calculator, you can go to Desmos, and they have a DESMOS. They have a great scientific calculator, but we're just going to do 2.14 times 100,000. And the bottom is all ones. You see how these are just ones? So 1 times 1 is 1. So we don't really need to do any math with that. You can also input it, and you're going to get the same number. So I'm getting 214,000 pascals, and this is going to be my final answer right here for this problem. Let's try another one. So this one says Miss Beckham needs 7.05 inches of rope to hang her golden pothos plant from her ceiling. How many centimeters is this? So again, I am going from inches this time. I'm going from inches to centimeters. So I need a relationship there. So I can see that relationship. I'm going to pull it up in my chart because I don't have it memorized. It looks like 1 inch is equal to 2.54 centimeters. So I could write that like this. Or what do you think I could write it as? What else? I could write it like this, flipped, right? Either way makes sense. So I have that written down now. This is my relationship. And now that's like kind of like step 1. Step 2 is to actually perform the math problem. So we're going to write down what we start with. So we are starting with 7.05 inches, right, of rope. You can put the rope if you want to. You don't have to write rope. And then I'm going to put it over 1 because it helps me just keep track of things. And then I'm going to multiply, do another fraction line, and then I need to put the unit I want to get to on top. So what unit do I want to get to? I want to get to centimeters of rope on top, and I need the inches of rope to cancel out. So that is going to go on bottom. And the reason it goes on bottom is so that it cancels out like that. Okay, so now I need to decide which one of these should I use. So which one do you think? Should I put the 1 inch on top or the 1 inch on bottom? Well, when you look at my units, I have centimeters on top and inches on bottom. So I'm going to use the second one because on this one, the inches are on top and the centimeters are on bottom. So I'm going to put the 2.54 on top and then the 1 on the bottom. And now I just need to multiply. And again, there's only 1s on the bottom this time, so that's awesome. So I just need to multiply the top, 7.05 times 2.54, and I'm getting 17.907 centimeters. And I'm going to round that off. You can see that right here I have 3 digits, 3 significant digits. And right here I have 3 significant digits. And then the 1s don't count because they are exact numbers. And so I need to round this off to 3 significant digits. So that's 1, 2, 3. So I'm just going to keep the 17.9 centimeters of rope to be my final answer. Okay, now let's try one last problem here. It says, Miss Beckham wanted to take a trip to the Dallas Aquarium, which is 215 kilometers away. If it took 1.5 hours to make it to the aquarium, what was her speed in meters per second? Okay, so this is kind of like a twofold. We're starting off with 2 things. We are starting off with kilometers, and we're starting off with 1.5 hours. We're starting off with 2 pieces of information. Do you see that? And these, like, you can't convert kilometers to hours because kilometers is like a length or a distance and hours is a time. You can only convert whenever like they're both units of length or both units of time. So kilometers and hours, like we're not going to transfer one to the other because that doesn't make any sense. But it asks, what was her speed in meters per second? So we need to convert the kilometers to meters and the hours to seconds because they gave me my distance in kilometers and my time in hours, and they want what is her speed in meters per second. So I'm going to convert the kilometers to meters and the hours to seconds. So let's start off with the 215 kilometers here. And let's see if we can kind of do a little bit of this as we go now. So I'm going to skip the relationship part and I'm going to come back to it. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and write down what I'm starting with. So I'm starting with 215 kilometers. I'm going to put that over 1 like we normally do. And I'm going to multiply and do my fraction line. And then I'm going to put the unit I want to get to on top. I want to get to meters. And I'm going to put the unit I want to cancel out on bottom. I want kilometers to cancel out because you can see that I have kilometers on top here. So I've inputted that, and now I need to find the relationship. Well, right here, I see that 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters. So I'm going to put the number 1 with the kilometer and the 1,000 with the meters. And that's just because I'm reading this and I'm putting the number with the unit. So see how it says 1 kilometer? I'm putting the 1 with the kilometer and the 1,000 with the meters. And that's just kind of like a little bit of a quicker way than writing out the fractions, is just putting in the relationship in the right place. So we're just going to multiply 215 times 1,000. So this is going to be 215,000 meters. We're not going to round anything off. This is an exact number. There are exactly 1,000 meters in a kilometer. So it doesn't matter with rounding. It doesn't count against significant figures when we're rounding that. Now I'm going to do it for hours to seconds. So I'm going to write down what I start with, which is 1.5 hours. Okay. And let's think about this. I need to go from hours to seconds. Does anyone know how many hours are in how many seconds are in an hour? You might think it's 60, but that's how many seconds are in a minute, right? So I'm going to go from hours to minutes to seconds, because off the top of my head, I don't remember how many seconds are in an hour, and I don't want to try to guess with that. So I'm going to write it down and put it over 1. And now I'm going to multiply, do my fraction line, but I'm going to go to minutes first. Normally you put the unit you want to get to on top. We're kind of doing like minutes first because I don't know seconds yet. And then I'm going to put hours on bottom so that the hours will cancel out. And now I have to ask myself, okay, how many minutes are in an hour? Okay, I know that there are 60 minutes for every 1 hour. Okay, so you could go ahead and multiply this and get your answer, 1.5 times 60, and then we're going to do it again. I'm just going to add on one more multiplication here. Now I want to get to seconds. And I want minutes to cancel out. Hours have already canceled out, right? I need the minutes now to go away because I don't want minutes in my answer. I want seconds. So I need to figure out how many seconds are in a minute. Well, again, there are 60 seconds in a minute, okay? And so now I can multiply 1.5 times 60 times 60 again. And I'm getting 5,400 seconds. Okay, so I've converted to meters and I've converted to seconds. Now it says, what was her speed in meters per second? Meters per second. Per is a word for divide. So my final answer, I'm going to kind of work a little bit over here, needs to be speed, which is meters divided by seconds. So I'm going to take my 215,000 meters and divide that by my 5,400 seconds. So I'm just abbreviating there. So we're going to do 215,000 divided by, ooh, I did an extra 0 there. Oops, so that should be 5,400 seconds, not 54,000. So divided by 5,400 seconds, and I am getting 39.8 meters per second as my answer there. So that is my final answer. Although this has 2 significant digits in it, and this one has 3, if you notice. So I might round that actually up to 40 and put like a line here to show that both of those are significant. Because again, this has 3 significant digits right there, and this one only has 2. So I need to limit myself by the least one. So I'm going to round it off to 40 and then put a line above it. So hopefully this helped you. If you feel confused at all, I can go much slower with you or answer your specific questions if you join my classroom. I'm super happy to help. I actually really enjoy helping, and I can go slower and answer your specific questions. So have a great day. Let me know if you need help with anything.